Hello and welcome to this week's Alter Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Susanna Alter.
And I'm Dr. Ben.
And we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
And today on our Alter Your Health from Head to Toe series, we're going to be talking about the lymphatic system. I guess we're getting through all of those systems that are everywhere before we dive into these systems from head to toe. We have talked about the brain because that's obviously within the head, but we talked about the lymphatic system or the circulatory system. Was it just last week? And we have to talk about the lymphatic system this week because, of course, it really does go hand in hand. And also just it's a sad fact that the lymphatic system is just so seldomly talked about. And for that reason, a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people don't acknowledge its importance and helping us create and maintain health, and how it can really be, how it can become stagnant and sluggish, which can deteriorate our health. So we're going to be talking about all these connections. And of course, the most important thing, how to keep it flowing healthfully in today's episode.
Yes. So I think it's very important to start off by talking about really what the lymphatic system is and how it works, because once we understand how it works, then we can really understand how to support it.
Right.
And it's important to recognize that the lymphatic system plays a key role in our immune system, in our body's ability to detoxify, and also the body's cardiovascular system.
And also the transport of bigger molecules like fats in the body.
Yes.
A lot of things.
A lot of things.
So those are what it does and how it works. Really just talking about where it is and what it's doing. It like we already said, it goes hand in hand with the circulatory system, the vascular system, because we talked about the arteries delivering oxygen and nutrients to our tissues and cells through capillaries. And in that delivery network at the capillary level, of course, we're also uptaking waste into veins or venules that is being, transported back into the circulatory system to be reoxygenated, etc. But at the level of that capillary bed, there's also a lot of leakage that's happening, leakage of fluids, leakage of proteins, leakage of hormones, leakage of all sorts of stuff. Plasma is the fluid from the blood. And that leakage is creating what is termed the interstitial fluid, which is the fluid between the cells, not intercellular fluid, which is in the cells, but interstitial fluid or extracellular fluid, which is outside of that cell. And if you can imagine, if you're just pumping blood and delivering oxygen and nutrients and you've got this leakage happening, then at some point you'd get a lot of swelling. And you get a lot of fluid just accumulating within the body in that interstitial space outside of the cells and outside of the vascular system. But fortunately, we've got our lymphatic circulation, our lymphatic vessels that really just mop up that fluid, and actually do so by kind of drawing it in through pressure gradients that allows these little lymphatic capillaries to accumulate that excess interstitial fluid and deliver that fluid back into the circulatory system. And while it's doing that, the lymphatic circulation, of course, is operating at low pressure, just kind of moving against gravity in many cases. And it goes through lymph nodes that maybe you've heard about, which is kind of where there's a checkpoint and security system that's making sure that nothing in that lymphatic system is going to be, cause damage once it gets into the circulatory system. So that's essentially the layout and framework of the lymphatic circulation. Again, it kind of goes right along with the circulatory system, the arteries and veins. But the main difference is that we think about our circulatory system as being this closed loop with a heart in there kind of pushing or pumping or creating these forces and these pulses of the circulatory system in the closed loop. And the lymphatic system is an open loop. It's got It's got the lymphatic capillaries are open at one end, and then the lymphatic circulation dumps into the subclavian veins, which are right above the heart, so that that fluid can be returned to the circulatory system, to the bloodstream for the most part.
Right.
So that's kind of the, hopefully, there's a lot of graphics, and really I intended to find one that illustrated what the heck's going on, but hopefully you can imagine and visualize what the heck is going on, and you can certainly find some images or short little videos to help you understand what's going on, because I think it really is important to have that connection with what the heck's going on, rather than just like, oh, I should be eating this and doing this to help my lymphatic system. Once we develop that deeper connection, that deeper understanding, that we're more empowered.
Right. Yeah, and just to add a few more details, to be clear of what is included in the lymphatic system, like you said, it's made up of lymph vessels, lymph nodes. There's also, specific tissues and specific parts of the body associated with our mucosa. It's actually called mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue.
Yeah, so those are like lymph nodes that aren't really properly big nodes. It's kind of just lymph, like clusters of denser lymphatic tissue.
Exactly. But interestingly enough, our tonsils, our adenoids, our spleen, and our thymus are also included in the lymphatic
Yeah, and
system.
also some people talk about the bone marrow. Any place where the immune system and immune cells are being created and trained and regulated, that sometimes is referred to lymphatic tissue, because of course those lymph cells or those immune cells are generally being stored and operating within the lymph nodes.
Right. Yeah. And so we talked about it's the lymph system's major role in aiding in circulation, making sure that we don't just start building up fluid in our tissues and getting that liquid back into our bloodstream, but also the lymph system has a huge role in our immune system. I like to think of lymph nodes as these kind of like security checkpoints.
Right.
And the lymph system is like our security system, where in the lymph nodes, there are lots of white blood cells that are scanning the lymph fluid for any kind of pathogens, any kind of toxicity or cancerous cells, to keep that lymph fluid clear.
Yeah.
And also, like we said, the lymph system plays a huge role in detoxification as well. You were describing how the lymph capillaries really mop up the fluid in the interstitial space, but what also they're mopping up is a ton of toxins, waste products,
yeah,
all sorts of stuff. And eventually it's going to circulate all that waste product back to the liver, so then our detox organs can help us excrete those toxins.
Exactly. So yeah, the liver lymph connection is pretty big, and as we're kind of creating this picture of what's going on in the lymphatic system, it can hopefully become more clear how, if things are getting sluggish, and by that we literally mean kind of stagnant, thick, because the lymphatic system is kind of more viscous than the circulatory system. It's carrying, of course, the fats and bigger proteins and molecules, and it's operating oftentimes against gravity, and that can create more stagnation, especially if you can imagine, of course, dehydrated, more sedentary, not moving, eating a diet that's higher in fat, since the lymphatic system is responsible for transporting those fatty acids into the circulatory system. So all of those kind of things, those are the three big things that create that stagnant scenario. And then, of course, if the lymphatic system isn't moving, you can think about kind of the symptoms or consequences, right? So one big one is, of course, swelling, lymphedema, as it's referred to, which is when, technically when those lymphatic lymphatic capillaries are blocked, things can block them, but they don't have to become fully blocked, right? They can become partially blocked, or just kind of, again, stagnant, and there's kind of this backflow. So there's not like there's different, I'm thinking of different parasites and whatnot that can cause a backflow or blockage of lymphatic vessels, like the classic elephantiasis, that's kind of a lymphatic condition. But Yeah, what else can happen when the lymphatic system is compromised or stagnant?
Well, if you think of more fluid being in the interstitial space and less fluid being in the circulation in our bloodstream, blood pressure can also drop. There can also be a decrease in the delivery of oxygen and nutrients, and also, that exchange between waste products at the capillary bed as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And because of the connection again with the liver and detoxification, because we're kind of mopping up waste and then delivering that waste back to our detoxification organs, I think about stagnant lymphatic and just kind of toxin accumulation in general. We want things to be moving like a stream, like a creek. If there's too much gunk and logs and twigs and debris in the creek, then things backflow or just kind of pool up, and then there's like mosquitoes and like bugs and all sorts of algae and gunk. But if you remove that and kind of keep the runoff going, you got clean, clear water.
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then, same thing with the effects on our immune system. If we've got this stagnation in lymph circulation, then the lymph isn't able to move through those security checkpoints as readily. It's like, when there's a hour-long wait at the TSA checkpoints at the airport or whatever. I've never been in an hour-long line, but I
Oh,
think they exist.
no, yeah, they do.
It's like things are just moving so much more slowly. And when we're talking about the security system of our body, we want our security checkpoints to be moving at a good pace so that we are scanning and clearing out any of those potentially hazardous compounds or pathogens or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then, so any other things that come to mind for you, Dr. Susanna, regarding lymphatic stagnation?
Well, I think it's we'll get to this later when we talk about how to support lymphatic health, but let's shift gears a little bit to talking about fat absorption and how
Yeah,
the
well,
lymph
what's
system.
coming to my mind real quick is just like it's so interesting, and I'm just thinking about this, how and this is the case with so many aspects of our body. Like it's hard to check in and think about, how is my lymphatic system today? What's going on? Because there's these symptoms that are associated with stagnant lymphatic system, but there's also this whole big gray area and all of this that can be happening before we have the manifestation of symptoms, whether it's swelling or a compromised immune system. Another thing that comes to mind is like skin issues, often reflecting lymphatic stagnation, because again, if we're not flowing that toxicity, flowing that waste back into the circulation to be detoxified, then that can be seeping through our skin quite literally. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of like, be, I guess the point is, just the importance of being proactive and not like waiting, like, oh, I don't have any of these, lymphatic congestion symptoms, so my lymphatic system must be optimal. And the fact is that we often bring up like our relationship with that kind of importance of being proactive. It's like we're all kind of in our world today, just given our technology, given our generally sedentary lifestyle, given the toxicity in our environment, we're all kind of like fighting this uphill battle to some extent. We all have to do some proactive, diligent work just to maintain our baseline status of health. It doesn't come easily in our world today, unfortunately. So I'm just thinking about, how important it is to simply be more proactive, with this information.
Right. Yeah, actually, that's a really good question about, what symptoms we can experience if the lymphatic system is just a little bit suboptimal. And I actually think it's kind of a similar discussion to that of the liver, the health of the liver and the
Right.
sluggish liver. And we'll actually talk a little bit about sluggish liver when we talk about how to support healthy lymphatic health in just a bit here in this episode.
Yeah.
So I won't get into that right now. But sometimes, there can be really kind of subtle issues. But I do think that sluggish liver and sluggish lymph certainly come hand in hand with each other. And
It's so
we'll
true.
explain that in a bit.
It's so true. So now, shifting gears to the lymphatic system's role in fat absorption, which is pretty unique. And again, because lymphatic system is responsible for transporting larger molecules in general, fatty acids are larger molecules, larger than our other macronutrients, generally larger than proteins and carbohydrates or simple sugars. So fatty acids, when we eat them, they are I always twist these terms around, the chylomicrons and the micelles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fatty acids are solubilized in micelles and then absorbed into the intestinal membrane or intestinal lining, and then broken down again and recreated into chylomicrons on the other side of the intestinal lining to be absorbed into the lymphatic system, transported in this kind of chylomicron. You can search for an image of what that looks like, but it's essentially this ball of fat that's transported through the lymphatic system, again, all the way, from our gastrointestinal system, all the way through the lymphatics, through the trunk, through the ducts, they're called, and into the circulation at the subclavian veins. So that's a roundabout way of getting our fats. And you can think about, again, if there's a lot of fat absorption, if there's a high fat diet, then the lymphatic system is simply going to become more viscous, more stagnant, especially if that high fat diet is also, alongside a state of dehydration and, suboptimal hydration and sedentary, not moving. And I guess now is as good a time as ever to talk about how that sedentary, lifestyle that, again, a lot of people are not moving enough. And it's not about like exercise. It's not about doing anything vigorous, but the fact is we need to be pumping our muscles. We need to be walking. We need to be lifting. We need to be squatting. We need to be doing these things because the lymphatic system is moving against gravity. And one thing that helps the flow of lymph vessels against gravity is simple muscular contractions. If we're not contracting our muscle, our lymph isn't moving. And again, it doesn't look like CrossFit exercises or going to the gym or running marathons or anything like that. It's simply not being sedentary, which means, walking, dancing, cooking, cleaning, playing, anything. It's just not sitting on the couch, which, we can all do less of, generally speaking.
You know what's funny? Well, many of you know that I'm pregnant, and a common pregnancy symptom is actually swelling in the feet and the lower extremities. And when I became pregnant, I have this fancy Garmin watch. It kind of tracks my activity and stuff. I told my Garmin watch that I'm pregnant. And right when I told the Garmin watch I was pregnant, it started telling me to move. It would give me, I know anyone can set a movement reminder on their watch, but it was a specific pregnancy
in there
setting. Yeah. Yes. And, I think probably there's many benefits to staying active, but of course for pregnant women, you want to keep that circulation flowing because we have so much more blood volume in the body. So there is more potential for having more of that leakage, that interstitial swelling, and just drawing that connection between.
Yeah, and of course, a symptom of pregnancy, because there's more blood volume and you're creating more blood and just building another human, there's less energy and therefore more likelihood of becoming a little bit fatigued and sedentary, not moving as much. And of course, that need to build more blood volume. You got to eat more, of course. You got to drink more, of course. And those kind of things are hard, especially with the symptoms of early pregnancy. Moving is, at the end of the day, really important. So let's talk about the important things to do to support healthy lymphatic circulation as we're kind of wrapping things up today.
Great. So the first one is pretty obvious, which is to stay hydrated, but that's because our lymph fluid is mostly made up of water.
Well, it should be. If we're properly hydrated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously the main thing that's going to make lymph fluid most viscous is dehydration. It's going to have the quickest, most immediate effect.
Yeah. The second most important thing is our nutrition. Of course, we want to consider the nutrient density and hydrating status of our foods, fresh fruits and vegetables. that's going to support just healthy immune system, healthy detoxification pathways. But of course, it's about what we're not eating as well, right? We're not eating the high fat diets, the saturated fat that's going to clog up the lymphatic circulation at the level of our digestive absorption. We're eating low on the food chain when we're choosing whole food, plant-based eating. So we're not accumulating things that are, again, going to get caught up in lymphatic circulation and cause that stagnation. So our nutritional status is really important.
Yes, that goes hand in hand with this other big major point that to support lymphatic health, we want to support liver health, because the more efficient our liver is at detoxifying and releasing these toxins from the body, the cleaner the bloodstream is going to be, and then the cleaner the lymphatic system is or the lymphatic fluid is going to be.
Yeah.
So sluggish liver leads to more sluggishness in the lymphatic system. And of course, all of the things you talked about with nutrition apply to supporting the liver.
Of course, everything's connected. And if we'll be talking more about the liver, I'm sure, but we already have a few liver episodes, I believe, in the podcast you can search for. So of course, we already talked about activity, movement. With regard to movement, there are some things that are especially helpful in moving lymphatics. Maybe you've seen or heard of the rebounders, which are like those mini trampolines that essentially just simulate high gravitational forces that kind of get things moving, shake things up. And so that rebounding activity can be really helpful for moving lymph. Same with swimming. The more gentle, walking, swimming, yoga, twisting, stretching, all of these things that are moving the body in more gentle ways. Again, it doesn't have to be vigorous, just gentle muscular contractions, moving that lymphatic circulation against gravity can be really helpful.
Right. I mean, back to my Garmin watch example, I don't have to do that much to pass the move bar or whatever.
Oh,
it's
okay.
It says move bar cleared or whatever.
Cool.
I just have to basically walk a few yards. Exactly.
Shake it up.
Yeah. And then another really effective way to support lymphatic circulation is lymphatic massage. You can either massage yourself, you can go to a special lymphatic massage therapist. And another practice that's also related to this kind of self-massage is skin brushing, where you take a dry brush or even just a dry towel and you lightly brush your skin. And you want to start distally at your hands, at your feet, and work towards your core, because once again, that's the direction that we're wanting to support the lymph and moving.
Yeah. Another great thing that we can do every day is some hydrotherapy. And by this, generally, we mean just ending your shower on cold. And of course, what this does, for those of you who haven't heard us rant and rave about just ending our showers on cold, the fact is that when we do that, we essentially cause this pumping mechanism of our general circulation. And that's going to also shift the dynamics of our lymphatic circulation as well, kind of move things in a way that decreases the stagnation and increases the flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then finally, like with anything, there are herbs and supplements that can be taken. We're not going to dive into that in today's episode, but just know, like with anything, I mean, your body is an individual body, has individual needs. And for some people, especially, with more kind of, more profound symptoms of lymphatic congestion, sometimes some natural support with something like herbal medicine on top of a strong foundation of lifestyle.
Can't stress that enough, right? Because we always say that supplements are supplementing your lifestyle.
Yes.
So hopefully you're really taking advantage of all these ways to improve lymphatic circulation and health through how you're eating and living. But yes, there are other things as well, other herbs and whatnot.
Yeah. We just started the Alter Health Cleanse last week. This week? Yeah. We just started yesterday. And we've had cases of individuals who have had kind of chronic swelling in their lower extremities experience improvement in swelling just over the course of the 10 days or 2 weeks of the cleanse. So that just shows you how important liver health and hydration and all the other lifestyle factors are for the lymphatic system.
Totally. Because of course this is a quote unquote liver cleanse, because that's what is going on. But as we are quote unquote cleansing the liver, we're also cleaning up the lymphatic system. So yeah, it is pretty cool. So if you've got any questions or feedback, feel free to leave them in the comments or anything like that. But otherwise, we appreciate you for tuning in to another episode here and look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Yeah. And if you're looking for more support, individualized support, go check out our Thrive on Plants program at our website, www.altered.health.
All right. Peace and love, you guys.
See ya on Wednesday.